Days of GFDRR. My name is Cristina Otano. I'm a Senior Operations Officer at GFDRR, and I will be the moderator or the Master of Ceremonies for today's event. As you probably noticed, those that know Partnership Days, this year is a little bit of a different edition, not only because we are here at Himeji, but because the sessions are embedded in the Understanding Risk Conference. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the agenda. If you haven't, I encourage you to do so. We've organized a myriad of different technical sessions and workshops that are going to happen throughout the week. So I'm hoping that you can join as many as possible, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Before we proceed today, I want to let you know about a few housekeeping aspects. So this session is being live streamed. It will be recorded, an edited version will be put on GFDRR website in coming days. I think the session is going to be very interesting. We expect a lot of questions. So we made the executive decision to take questions only for the people in the room. I'm sorry for the people online. You can always reach out to us. After the event, we will have cookies and coffee, or snacks and coffee, and so we can continue the conversations on the side. And I would just encourage you all, if you haven't done so, to go downstairs and have a look at GFDRR Pavilion. You can learn more about GFDRR in depth there. So to set the stage of what promised to be an interesting afternoon, even though I know we are in the graveyard shift and everybody is jet lagged and tired, I would like to ask Victoria Huchelshofer. She is the Senior Policy Officer at Germany's BMZ, and she will be delivering some opening remarks. So thank you, Victoria. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Christina, for the introduction. It is a pleasure to be here today at GFDR's Partnership Days event, part of the Broader Understanding Risk 2024 Global Forum. I want to express my great gratitude to GFDR for the opportunity to address all of you here and for organizing this Partnership Council meeting, the Partnership Days that go with it. As one among many fellow PC members, I am excited to initiate our discussions here today with a focus on some of the strategic questions and ideas that will shape our collective efforts in disaster risk management and resilience building. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the representatives of Japan's Ministry of Finance for their leadership in co-chairing this Partnership Council and the Partnership Days and this meeting, and for their hospitality in welcoming us to Himeji. I would like to begin by emphasizing the overarching themes that guide our work. Disaster risk management and resilience are not merely technical challenges to solve, but essential components of sustainable development. Our discussions should weave these principles across all sectors and regions, ensuring our efforts are both holistic and impactful. By doing so, we can enhance community resilience worldwide and lessen the adverse effects of disasters on development. For Germany, understanding how to secure development outcomes through risk-informed development is one of our core priorities, especially in contexts affected by fragility, conflict, and violence, which make up 2/3 of our partner countries. Partnering with GFDRR has been key to advancing our objectives. GFDRR stands as the premier institution for creating scalable impact on the ground, fostering innovation, strengthening local capacities, and promoting sustainable development. Its collaborative and inclusive approach ensures our joint efforts lead to meaningful and lasting impact. As we dive into our discussions today, I look forward to exploring ways to boost our collaborative efforts. The exchange of knowledge, sharing of best practices, and strengthening of our partnerships are crucial as we face an increasingly complex risk landscape. This Partnership Days event and the UR24 Global Forum provides a unique opportunity for us to learn from each other and to refine our strategies to meet the evolving challenges of disaster risk management. There are 2 specific challenges I am interested in exploring with you today. Firstly, what is needed to broaden the perspective in mainstreaming efforts beyond climate risk to a broader, all hazards perspective that allows us to address the increasingly complex risk landscape? And secondly, how can we build on the efforts of GFDRR to further advance preventative actions in FCV set contexts by addressing the underlying drivers of disaster, conflict, and fragility risk? Related to this is the question of how we can build the evidence base for DRM in these contexts context as basis for future funding decisions. The COP28 Declaration on Climate Relief, Recovery and Peace is just one recent example that highlights the need to strengthen our efforts to support contexts affected by FCV in reducing disaster risks, which will reduce humanitarian needs and human suffering. The importance and urgency of scaling up disaster risk management and resilience cannot be overstated. We need to integrate disaster risk management into every aspect of development to ensure our initiatives are not only reactive, but also preventative and adaptive. As was stressed during the midterm review of the Sendai framework, DRM is an outcome, not a sector. By making disaster risk management a cross-cutting priority, we can contribute to long-term development gains and create a more resilient future for all. I look forward to our discussions today and forging an even stronger partnership that will drive our shared mission forward. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Victoria. That was really a powerful message, and indeed you're right. We wouldn't be here at GFDRR doing what we do at the scale that we do if it wasn't because of our partnerships and because of all of you, so thank you. I would like now to call Niels Holm Nielsen. He's the practice manager of GFDRR, to talk a bit about our work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Partnership. So most of you in the room, all of you in the room, you already have a pretty good sense of what GFDRR is. It stands for the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery, quite a mouthful. We're really all about partnerships. You heard Victoria talk about the importance of impact and innovation. We exist as a partnership to try to contribute to create impact related to the Sendai framework. We can only do that in partnership. In this room today, we have maybe 3 different group of partners, but we have many, many more partners, and you will see a lot of them in this conference here. And there's many more that didn't even make it to this conference. But here in the room, we have government representatives, we have donor representatives, and we have world bankers. And all of them play a key role for how we deliver impact and how we generate and understand and manage innovation for disaster risk management globally. Of course, the government officials, they are the ones who deliver the impact. We, as an institution, never do anything anywhere without the leadership, the ownership, the drive of the governments that we're supporting. So everything GFDRR offers directly is with and to a government. We generate some innovation, we generate research, we generate knowledge that of course can be used by a much broader set of people. But when we engage and when we focus on driving impact, it's always about what can we enable a government somewhere to do differently than they otherwise wouldn't be doing. Of course, we couldn't do it without the donors that contribute the money. We manage resources that we allocate to deliver services to the governments, and we use money to generate knowledge that then becomes part of the innovation equation, but that becomes specific knowledge that's relevant somewhere in a way that enables them to do something they otherwise wouldn't do. So we can't do it without the money. This generation of know-how of how to do disaster risk management in many, many, many different contexts, it wouldn't happen on its own. It only happens because of those contributions from our donor partners. And of course, the World Bank is a key part of this equation. The only reason we exist is because of the World Bank. You won't be able to find a partnership like this anywhere else. Not because our group of people as specialists are unique, but because there is no other development finance institution with the size and the reach of the World Bank Group. And the only way we can have a global impact potential is because the World Bank has offices in 155 countries and professionals all around the world. And these professionals, day in, day out, work with the country counterparts that they're working with. And that creates a very different relation that we would not be able to create just by ourselves. We have about 20 people that works for the partnership itself, and another 20 technical specialists at the World Bank that works in our unit. And this small group of 40 people literally have the task of trying to create disaster risk management impact globally, of course we can't do it without partners. There's a very large amount of technical partnerships. You will hear about some of them today. You will hear a few snippets of presentations from people in our team that will talk a bit about partnerships, but you will see during this week, if you attend some of the many sessions we're co-organizing, you will see NGOs, UN agencies, academia, private sector. It's literally a list of more than probably 400 different partners in different contexts. And then, of course, on the ground, the task teams that are supporting the governments often do it together with an entity that is present on the ground and offers a complement that's relevant for the engagement that is happening. So partnership is a lot of things to us. It's hard for us to codify. It's much more than one global conversation, but it's key for what we do. We won't be able to try to achieve impact at global scale without it. So with that, I hope you will have a lot of questions to the government counterparts. They will talk a little bit about what they have achieved in their countries with a bit of support from us, and a lot of other questions to some of the GFDRR staff that will be talking to you about some of the work that they are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Niels, for that compelling overview of what GFDRR is and how it works. I think there is no better way to understand the impact of our work than to dive into specific examples and into the specific work we do in some of the countries. Today, we have the opportunity to have here representatives of some of the countries we work with, and we are going to hear from them. But before we do so, let me play a video so that you can see what that work actually looks like in the countries they are representing. Thank you.
Since 2006, the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery, GFDRR, in collaboration with the World Bank and other strategic partners, has helped countries to understand, manage, and reduce risks from natural hazards and climate change. Over 18 years, we have moved beyond just disaster response and recovery to prevention, preparedness, and anticipatory action. Working in over 150 countries, we provide financial support, technical expertise, and knowledge for impactful, sustainable, and scalable impact. Let's look at recent examples from Tonga, Colombia, Romania, and the Philippines. The Kingdom of Tonga is one of the world's most vulnerable countries to climate and disaster risk. In January 2022, the eruption of an undersea volcano and the subsequent tsunami impacted 85% of the country's population and caused $90 million in damages. Just before the eruption, a hybrid financing operation was put in place to strengthen Tonga's resilience. And as a result, an immediate $8 million in emergency funding was available for the government's initial response. To build long-term resilience, GFDRR has assisted Tonga in developing their first national disaster risk management policy framework. This has strengthened Tonga's ability to manage natural hazards and ensure risk reduction is the responsibility of all. On-the-ground works include a new National Emergency Operations Center and physical building improvements to climate-resilient classrooms. Colombia has one of the highest rates of disasters caused by natural and climate-induced hazards in the Latin America and Caribbean region. 84% of the population live in areas exposed to 2 or more hazards, from recurrent floods and landslides to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The Colombian government, with support from GFDRR, has worked to increase resilience of the country's health sector. The support included AI-based tools to identify and prioritize the most at-risk health facilities that require upgrading based on disaster exposure and population vulnerability. This method informed a $1.3 billion health system project, while directing $100 million to upgrade the most at-risk health facilities. In Colombia, GFDRR also supported the Municipal Disaster Risk Index, which helps decision makers assess and rank risks from hazards like floods, landslides, and forest fires. The index includes tools for addressing risk locally. Romania faces various natural hazards, including earthquakes, floods, droughts, and extreme weather, threatening poverty reduction and sustainable growth. In response, the government has invested significantly in disaster response capabilities. GFDRR has been instrumental in strengthening Romania's emergency response infrastructure. It supported the government in implementing programs to reduce the vulnerability of critical buildings, including 35 fire stations identified as high risk from earthquakes, requiring retrofitting, upgrades, and energy efficiency improvements. As a result of GFDRR initiatives, over 500 first responders are now better equipped to assist people with disabilities during emergencies. And emergency preparedness guides have been updated to ensure all citizens, especially the most vulnerable, are better prepared and more resilient in the face of disasters. The Philippines' high exposure to natural hazards poses a major threat to its people and economic growth. Since 2018, GFDRR has provided $20.9 million to the Philippines and has influenced $2.9 billion of World Bank investments. The PlanSmart Ready to Rebuild program helped over 2,000 local governments to prepare for disaster recovery using an automated planning tool, the first of its kind globally that integrates natural hazard data from the GeoRisk platform into disaster recovery plans. Through the program, provinces and cities affected by recent disasters were able to quickly prepare their local recovery plans and fast-track implementation of recovery projects. Now, new PlanSmart tools are being developed for safe schools and communities to support the strengthening of public buildings, schools, and health facilities. The GFDRR work in the Philippines has also promoted inclusive DRM and gender equality, ensuring inclusion is a central component in managing disasters. Around the world, the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery is scaling up development and resilience impacts, particularly in response to climate change. Together, we can adapt and thrive.
Well, I believe we are all waiting to hear for our representative, so I'm just going to call Zoe Trohanis to the stage. Zoe is a lead disaster risk management specialist at GFDRR, and she's now the new global lead for DRM at the World Bank. So, Zoe.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Great to be here with you all today. So I'd like to invite my distinguished panelists to join me. So I'm going to call them up one by one. So I'm going to start with Tonga, Mr. Mafua Maka, who's Director of the National Disaster Risk Management Office in Tonga. Hey, wherever you like. Next, Ms. Carolina Diaz-Giraldo, Director of Colombia's Environment and Development Department of National Planning. Bienvenida. Next, Dr. Renato Solidum Jr., Secretary of the Philippines Department of Science and Technology. Welcome. And then Dr. Raed Arafat, State Secretary at the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Romania and the head of the Romanian Emergency Situations Department. So hopefully everybody got a kind of a bit of a virtual visit, no? So it was great. I haven't been to all of these amazing countries, but I think the video gave us setting the scene, in case you haven't been either. So what I'm going to do now is ask the panel a round of questions. So I'm going to start, I'll ask the question, and we can start with Carolina, if we can start with you. So this is the question. Could you please provide specific examples of GFDR programs or projects that have been particularly helpful and impactful in your country? And how has GFDR and the World Bank's support in terms of technical assistance, expertise, and knowledge helped your country overcome challenges of building resilience to climate change and natural hazards. So please, we can go along like this.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sai. And I'm so happy to be here today. And let me start that saying, but in Colombia, the occurrence of the disaster is like a global context, you know, all our events in the last 20 years, 88% are hydrometeorological and climatic disaster. However, in our country, after reviewing our investments, we noticed that 75% is allocated to emergency management and humanitarian aid and reconstruction processes. So a small percentage goes towards institutional strengthening and mitigation works, but only 2% is dedicated to improving knowledge. So the situation made us like reconsider as the information we were using to prioritize intervention, and we realized that our resources were being directed by the disaster itself, and not necessarily like by public policy criteria with a proactive and planning mindset. So we needed to understand where and how to allocate the resources and efforts more effectively. And this is the reason why, as a country, we developed a tool called the Municipal Disaster Index Adjusted by Capacity, a long name, I know that. And this is with the support of the World Bank through the GFDRR, and the tools aims to recognize the diversity of our subnational level, I mean for each municipality in the country, identifying risk factors both in terms of hazards and exposure, vulnerability and risk, as well as the capacity and limitation of each municipality to manage the risk condition, you know, in terms of financial, technical, and social aspects. So the index assesses the risks and capabilities of municipalities in dealing with excess rainfall, you know, so floods, flash floods, and landslide, and also the insufficient rainfall. So it works with droughts and forest fire. And let me emphasize that the index allows us to address like three main aspects. So to orient public policy priorities in a differential way with a preventive approach. You know, Colombia is highly diverse, and we could not continue to apply like a standard strategy to make decisions. To focus technical assistance and investment from the national and territorial budgets. And it's also like a mechanisms used by the municipalities to track how they are improving or not the performance in the index, and where we should make like a greater effort to reorient policy. So the tool is simple, it's easy to understand. It's based on historical information, census, databases, and open data from technical, scientific entities in Colombia. And it's an experience that can be replicated in other countries, as we already work with Chile, Peru, and some states in Brazil.
Great, thank you. Let me pass to Dr. Solidum. Same question. If you need, I can repeat.
Okay. But before I respond, let me thank the government of Japan, the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery, and the World Bank for continuously assisting the Philippine government in its desire to develop resilient communities. Key to implementing projects would be proper planning, and key to proper planning would be science-based information, exposure data, and the participation of key government offices. What the World Bank did was, prior to my experience with the World Bank, they have been solely relying on foreign experts and university professors on the work in the Philippines, but they pivoted by engaging government experts, scientists, and other experts that facilitated everything. It all started with World Bank finance study tour or educational trip of select government officials from vice ministers to director level of key government agencies under the Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. And because of this study tour and our previous experience in the country and our desire to improve disaster risk management, this key group of officials formulated a set of action plans before returning to the Philippines. So once we went back, and together with the World Bank, there were many projects that were facilitated by these officials and other officials of government, simply because we now know what needs to be done. So we have the disaster risk management policy loan with catastrophe deferred drawdown option, or CAT-DTO, the Philippine Seismic Risk Reduction and Resilience Project, and the Infrastructure for Safer and Resilient Schools Project. And these are very impactful. Although these are still ongoing, key to the planning would be the decision of the World Bank to utilize the government geospatial information platform for hazards and risk assessment with exposure data, and that is the GeoRisk Philippines initiative that is developed by our own organization. And once the project of the World Bank with the Civil Defense Office, which is the Ready to Rebuild, we began to think of automating things so that we can facilitate local government's rebuilding phase. Before, we used to develop a recovery plan for around 6 months to more than a year. But with the Plan Smart Ready to Rebuild, which is an automated planning guide, complete with the updated physical socioeconomic profile and the hazards and risk assessment, the local governments would just need to look at down-drop menu intervention options, and with the push of a button, a recovery plan is made. And because of these initiatives and the desire of the national and local governments to really plan better, the work of the World Bank has been really impactful, because now we can actually influence the local government, because in terms of disaster risk management, it is the local government that is in the front line, of course supported by the national government. And I'm very glad that this initiative of the World Bank has facilitated, again, the cooperation of different officials of government and the local officials.
Many thanks. And so, Dr. Arafat, please.
Yes, thank you. So I would like to echo the thanks to the World Bank and to the Japanese government for the Global Fund and for the Trust Fund for developing our disaster preparedness and resilience in our countries. Romania is a disaster-prone country. We have earthquakes, floods, slides, landslides. Of course, we were part of the pandemic as the whole world was. Our risk management plans include 22 risks in Romania. And all of them might be even interconnected, or they may appear at the same time, some of them together. So we need to be much better prepared. Now, since the World Bank re-engaged in supporting disaster management in Romania, that's 2018, the first thing we did is looking at increasing the resilience of the rescuers and the lifesavers. So we looked at our fire stations, which were prone to the earthquake risk. We had fire stations which could fall on the firefighters before even them trying to move out to rescue others. So one of the first projects that we did is the project to rebuild, reconstruct, or retrofit a number of 35 fire stations. To this, we added 7 police stations, 13 gendarmerie stations also, which are stations where rescuers and intervention forces reside. So at this moment, we have already 4 fire stations which have been rebuilt, and some of them have already the firefighters back. I will give the example of the one in Bucharest, which we had to evacuate in 2017 because of the high risk on the firefighters, leaving an important area of Bucharest uncovered and having to wait for fire engines and ambulances from a further point. So now it is ready to get restarted in July, I hope. And this is one of the examples. There are also 22 schools that are under the same project. Schools are also one of the major issues in Romania. There are many buildings which need retrofitting and need either retrofitting or full reconstruction. Another project which I think that is of utmost importance, and we already have the proof of concept, is the CAD-DDO. We benefited of a $500 million CAD-DDO program, which many people were telling us, why do you need it? You don't need this, it will never happen. That was in 2018, 2019. And at the pandemic, that was the first thing we could access to use the funds from the CAD-DDO, and that was very helpful. And I think that this increases the resilience of a country because you can react immediately and you have the means to react to a disaster. So now we are working on the second CAD-DDO for $300 million, and we are also, I think, the second country which is going for the rapid response option, which means that we can take up to 10% from the projects we have if they were not accessed the money to be able to react faster. So all these, in fact, they build up our preparedness and our resilience to face disasters, whatever they are, whatever their nature is, whether they are natural disasters or other types of disasters that may need immediate response. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I think all of your countries have leveraged the CAD-DDO. So it's definitely a useful tool. So I'm glad you flagged also the rapid response option. I think also the Philippines has availed of that as well. So that's a new tool that we have. So let me pass over now to Director Mafua. Please.
Thank you. I would like to echo this together with myself, with our panelists, thank the government of Japan for allowing us to participate in this very important forum. Please allow me to provide some brief context of the Kingdom of Tonga. We are an archipelago consisting 169 islands in the South Pacific Ocean. We face numerous disaster risks, primarily due to our vulnerability to natural hazards, such as tropical cyclones, earthquakes, tsunami, and sea level rise. We are in the cyclone-prone zone of the Pacific, experiencing frequent cyclones, which cause widespread damage to our infrastructure, homes, and agriculture. We are highly exposed to earthquakes and tsunami due to our location on the Pacific Ring of Fire. You all probably recall the Hunga Tonga, Hunga Ha'apai volcanic eruption and tsunamis that made international headlines. These challenges are compounded with factors such as limited resources, a small population, and our highly dependency on agriculture and fisheries. We have a long standing cooperation with the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery. GFDRR has supported technical assistance to our government on safer schools, resilient public facilities, early warning systems, housing sector resilience office support, resilient tourism recovery, and post-disaster assessments. More recently, GFDRR's financial contribution from Australia and global technical expertise help us to develop our first ever national disaster risk management policy following promulgation of our Disaster Risk Management Act in 2021. The World Bank team worked with us to develop a national policy that helps our government to balance emergency management functions with broader and more proactive disaster risk management responsibilities. The vision of the policy is to increase the resilience of communities and assets through proactive disaster risk management. The policy defines 25 DRM objectives for our country and presents implementation arrangements to achieve this objective. GFDRR analytical and support and advisory support helps us to ensure that future disaster risk management investments in Tonga are aligned with global innovations and best practices. This was certainly the case for development of policy, with technical assistance from GFDRR, sharing good practices from the region and internationally, including our socially inclusive DRM and evidence-based multi-hazard risk assessments. We are now working with the World Bank with a follow-up technical assistance. We've continued support from GFDRR to develop a multi-hazard risk assessment and DRM plan for Vava'u. Vava'u is the second largest island in Tonga. This initiative will help our government plan for long-term development of Vava'u, considering how to mitigate the impact of natural and climate-related hazards. In addition, GFDRR has also helped to enhance the impact of our DRM investments. For example, under the Pacific Resilience Project financed by the World Bank, an additional 1.5 million USD of co-financing from the government of Japan through GFDRR has helped to enhance our multi-hazard early warning systems and emergency management infrastructure. So in particular, GFDRR funds supported the construction of 2 outer islands emergency operation centers in Hapai, the 3rd largest island in Tonga, and Vava'u, as well as radio communications equipment, emergency stockpiles and vehicles, which were critical in our post-disaster response to Hunga Tonga and Hunga Hapai event. We look forward to continue our collaboration with GFDRR to leverage financial and technical support. Thank you. Malo.
No, thank you very much. So I'm going to go now around again with some specific questions to each of you. So I'm going to start, again, we'll go in this direction with Director Diaz. So maybe you can tell us what are some key skills or knowledge areas where you have seen the most improvement in terms of risk reduction and climate adaptation?
Sure. I will start that Colombia, like many of the countries here at the UR24, is committed to the post-2015 agendas. I mean the Paris Agreement, the new urban agenda, the SDGs, and also the Sendai framework. I don't know if you see like the information about SDG downstairs, but it means that we share like 3 major objectives, I know. So strengthening resilience, promoting sustainability, and reducing vulnerability. But I think that we learned that each agenda will always have like a partial integration from its very inception. So SDGs and the Paris Agreement have the greatest political leverage in Colombia and in the world. And the greatest resources for the implementation. So compared to the commitment with the Sendai framework. And it makes us wonder what is happening in Colombia. So in Colombia, investment in DRM is like 3 times less than climate change. that and this become like an historical investment. And this showed us like the post agendas could be like a great political success, but in practice we have challenges because they do not reflect like the multidimensional character of the development. So this is why now we are building new mechanisms to work on sustainable and resilient development with an emphasis on disaster risk reduction and climate action. So right now we are shifting toward a more comprehensive approach to disaster risk management, collaborating with various sectors, financial, water, transportation, social sector. So this involves like moving from the traditional hazard-focused approach to an integrated method that includes risk management, climate change management, and biodiversity management. So the second one is we have like a better economic and financial analysis so that decision maker identify risk management as a measure of competitiveness. And it's important because we are now like with a better balance about environmental, economic, and social benefits, and that disaster risk criteria in sectoral projects are not seen like a cost overrun. And, to demonstrate that the impact of the DRM may not be immediately apparent and require a substantial initial resource and investment and longer for implementation period. And the third area of improvement is that our political policies and methodologies recognize the diversity of each territory, but we adapted to working in the informal city and remote rural areas, avoiding like overly demanding methodologies or unrealistic governance. So that's it.
Thank you. So I'm going to move to Dr. Solidum. So you spoke a bit in your remarks earlier about the importance of local governments, no? So it would be great if you could share some key features of the GFDR projects that highlight especially the strong collaboration and impact among national and local governments and cities, these different stakeholders.
Yeah, to name a few, I think the very impactful intervention of your group would be on the CAT DDO, because it made us financially ready for large-scale or extreme disasters, especially for the various hydrometeorological, the super typhoons, and of course the COVID-19. But with the CAT DDO, the policy outcomes would be focused on how we can improve the local government's appreciation of the risk and their preparedness to manage the risk, and especially for the eventful impact of many large-scale disasters on how to recover. And with this, the influence of the assistance of the World Bank with the Department of Finance and the national government has been made evident by using our planning tool, which is the GeoRisk Philippines initiative, that is able to provide anyone with hazards and hazards assessment in less than 1 minute for any point in the Philippines, to be able to provide the analytics for a village, town, or province, again, in a very fast manner, and to develop a nationally consistent exposure data. With those kind of training that has been provided, both by us at the Department of Science and Technology and through the various initiatives with other national agencies, we were able to now finally develop the Plan Smart Ready to Rebuild, which is an automated tool. And that has made a very big impact to the consciousness of many people, especially at the national agency and the local government, because now they don't need a lot of consultants, GIS expert, hazard expert, English writer, to develop a recovery plan written in English, because the app is the consultant, everything. And because of this, other departments of government has partnered with the Department of Science and Technology, facilitated by the World Bank projects, to develop a plan smart for a resilient human settlement or sustainable human settlement, a plan smart for land use planning, a plan smart for safe schools, a plan smart for resilient tourism, a plan smart for ready to respond. All of this can now actually, at some point, be integrated so that we can have a holistic DRM automated planning tool. That has made us not only busy, but very happy because now we can influence using science, technology, innovation, and other collective efforts by the national government to really influence the frontliners, national agencies, and local government.
Great, thank you. No doubt you're all very busy. I'm sure they're keeping you busy with all this. So Dr. Arafat, it would be great if you could talk a bit about how GFDRR activities help strengthen the collaboration of the Romanian Department of Emergency Situations with civil society on disaster risk preparedness and response.
Yes, thank you. So since the department was founded, that is in 2014, it was clear that we have to reach to the civil society. What we wanted and what we kept on saying is that we want to know you before a disaster happens. We don't want to discover you during a disaster. So the worst thing is to have people coming for the first time during a disaster and telling you, we want to help you, we have this and this and this, and you don't know, in fact, what they can do, if they can do, and so on. So embedding the civil society, the NGOs, into our activity, exercising with them, working with them, became a very important target for the department. So with the World Bank and through the GFDRR, we developed a platform where we invited the civil society to subscribe in the platform with their assets and so on. And then the Understanding Risk, Regional Understanding Risk Conference, which was held in Romania in 2019, it brought the civil society nearer to us. A lot of exchanges, not only within Romania, but also with experts from outside Romania and with similar agencies from outside Romania. We also started working with the disabled and with the disability associations. So we have now two protocols signed, one with the associations of the deaf and the association of the blind. And we are working on improving our guidelines that we have them online to be accessible to them as well. So this is part of the work that is being developed with the World Bank, including also the adaptation of our guidelines for children, so that children between 7 and 14 can understand the guidelines for how to deal with an earthquake, how to behave, how to be ready, to be understood by them better than just having the variant that we do it for adults to access such data. The result of all this was very visible, especially during the refugee crisis of the Ukraine. I would tell you that Romania had a whole of society approach, and we had all NGOs, our partners especially. We partner with over 30 NGOs, medium, large ones. We had them together with us, and they worked with us, and they are still working with us. Imagine we have a platform of discussions which is animated every Tuesday by one of our staff. And we have, after 2 years, NGOs still going in and discussing with us and telling us what they need to help people more, how they need our support, how they want to collaborate. So I think that this was a very good example of how the Global Fund could help and how partnerships could be built through this.
Oh, thank you. That's a great example. So, Director Mafua, I'd like to ask if you could speak a bit about how GFDRR's activities supported Tonga's progress in strategizing disaster risk financing options and accessing contingent financing, including from the World Bank. And I think you spoke a bit about before, but great if you can explain a bit more.
Thank you. There are a few examples I can share on this point. I think first, the Ministry of Finance and our National Disaster Risk Management Office work jointly on a disaster risk financing strategy, the first in the Pacific region. We shared the draft with the World Bank team, and through GFDRR support, they leveraged the global expertise to provide inputs on the strategy. A key policy action of this strategy is to layer financial instruments to enhance our financial protection to disasters. This includes our National Emergency Fund, access to contingent emergency response components, and projects financed by the World Bank, sovereign risk insurance, and contingency financing. The disaster risk financing strategy helped us to secure our first GFDRR of $8 million USD as part of the policy metrics required to complete it before the World Bank can approve the GFDRR. The contingency financing was approved just 1 month before the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcanic eruption and tsunami. The fortunate timing of the approval ensured we had access to the contingent funds within 48 hours of our request to the World Bank, helping us to fund immediate emergency response needs. The disaster risk management policy helped us to secure our second GFDRR of $20 million USD. The Vava'u multi-hazard risk assessment and DRM plan will directly help us to achieve the results indicator to have increased coverage of Tongas with a DRM plan. I would like to highlight the importance of ensuring countries such as Tonga are supported on both the policy reforms and the implementation. There are great opportunities for GFDRR to continue providing technical assistance to Pacific countries to enhance our DRM frameworks. Malo.
Thank you. I'm going to check with, are we still good on time to do one more round? Yeah? Okay. So a lot of common threads here in the discussion, which I like hearing about in terms of the need for better emergency preparedness, the innovation and the need for data, the underlying data for risk assessments, the inclusive elements, the need to work with different partners. So I'm going to go around and ask one last question to you all before we go into the Q&A. So just to get your thoughts on how can GFDRR continue to support your country in building resilience and addressing future risks. So we've done quite a bit. We've heard a lot about the progress. So going forward, what would your priorities be? What would if you had your wish of what we could do next, what would it be? So maybe we'll switch it up and we'll start on the other side with Director Mafua, and we'll come in this direction if that's okay.
Thank you for putting me on that stage. Okay, I'll be quick this time. GFDRR can continue to support Tonga in building resilient and addressing future risk through several key actions. I think firstly, it can assist in the implementation and enforcement of Tonga's DRM Act 2021 and DRM Policy 2023-2030, helping secure necessary financial and technical resources. And secondly, GFDRR can focus on capacity building initiatives to enhance local skills and knowledge in disaster risk management. Thirdly, GFDRR can aid in developing specific standard operating procedures, SOPs, tailored for different disaster scenarios within a short time frame. Additionally, it should support the formulation of detailed DRM plans at both national and island levels? Thank you.
Well, I'm going to talk about two facilities that we are going to access. The first one is the GFDRR Trust Fund, which is financed by Japan. And this we are working in order to prepare our inclusive policy to have as I said before, the vulnerable people included in all our plans and our approach to disaster management and disaster response. Also about gender vulnerability and about the vulnerability of women and girls during disasters, and on how to be able to work with this, to train people. We want to include trainees that can work in such conditions, can discover what is happening, can report it, can work with it. And also on training in schools for children on various issues related to disaster preparedness, making children understand better how to deal with a disaster, how to deal with an earthquake, how to provide first aid, how to become the first responder. This is what we are trying to spread within our communities, is being that you who is in front of the situation, you are the first person to act. You should not be waiting for us as the government, and you should know how to act during a disaster. Now, the other facility, it's through the EU. That's the EU TAF, the financing facility coming for 2024-2026, where we are accessing it, and I know that we have already an initial approval for it, and this will work on post-disaster recovery. So we are going to start developing our post-disaster recovery capacity and tools in order to be able to deal with it better, to recover better, to embed the concept that learn from what happened and become better afterwards, which means implement better solutions than the ones you had if they didn't work. Thank you.
Okay, I can spit out a lot of suggestions, but let me focus on what is important. Many countries are ready for small-scale events, but many countries, just like the Philippines, need to be prepared for extreme disasters. And we've been preparing for a large magnitude 7.2 earthquake that will affect Metro Manila and the surrounding provinces, which actually provides almost 60% or around 60% of our GDP. And to prepare Metro Manila for such an event, World Bank and GFDRR and the government of Japan have already started your assistance by looking at how we can strengthen schools, critical infrastructure by retrofitting, but also capacitating in terms of being able to respond immediately after a major event, the public works and highways, which need to actually open up roads and and fix major bridges for transport to respond and to link different communities to hospitals in case of a large magnitude earthquake event. So we have two projects, the seismic resilience and the infrastructure resilience under the Department of Education. But we also need to look at beefing up our capacity nationally to be able to prepare how to respond fast. Just like what was done in Romania, they have built up capacity to really respond fast with all the transport systems like airplane or helicopter, ambulances. We need to have that because we don't have a single command and control for these various things. It's a big project, but needs to be started. Overall though, we need to increase the capacity of local communities. So may I speak as a science minister? If we look at everything, we need to integrate many efforts, one of which is resilience. We need to look into developing smart and sustainable cities all over the country by focusing not only on resilience, but creating wealth that is less affected by major disasters. So one of our big programs is to develop these smart and sustainable communities where we will revitalize economic development through science, technology, and innovation with the rapid commercialization of innovation, but helping communities protect the economic development that they have gained with time. And people can be convinced if livelihood and resilience is partnered together.
First of all, I think that drawing from the experience of the GFDRR, we are hopeful that it can facilitate a dialogue between public sector, but including private sector and the multilateral organization to accelerate the mobilization of the resources and the implementation of DRM action. So I think that in Colombia, we require working like on three main topics: governance, knowledge management, and transparency mechanisms. So for the first one, the challenge of sustainable development, such as climate change, biodiversity loss, water resources management, green finance, are putting like a lot of pressure on our governance system. So this leads to overloads on institution, overlapping responsibilities, duplication of information, and inefficient financing. So we are thinking that it is now necessary to reform the institutional framework of environmental, climate change, and disaster risk management to take more integrated approach to development. About the knowledge dimension, the challenges is to improve the quality of investment. And it is crucial to establish like a robust support strategy that covers the entire investment cycle, encompassing formulation, design, operation, maintenance, and evaluation, because we are just concentrated on the initial formulation stage. And for the last one about the transparency mechanisms, one of the major challenges is the difficulty that we have on setting measurable objectives to track whether we are reducing or becoming more resilient as a country in the short term and the medium term. So that means that we need to improve like a clearer metrics as well as a better monitoring platform. So we will so happy to continue working with the GFDRR.
Thank you, everyone, for all of your inputs. So I'm going to now open up the floor in case anyone has any questions they would like to ask to the panelists. I think we have microphones in case. Come on, guys. I'm sure there's some questions. Matthias?
There is a question there.
Cookies? No, Matthias has a question.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matthias. I'm from the Swiss Agency for Development Cooperation. I was struck by the comment by the colleague from Colombia, Carolina. You've mentioned the need to integrate disaster risk management with the response to climate change. Of course, climate change also brings a lot of more slow onset disasters like sea level rise, melting glaciers in some countries, changes to biodiversity, etc. So I wonder, in the other contexts, in Philippines, Romania, and Tonga, do you also do that, or do you keep those planning exercises separate for climate adaptation, for instance, from disaster risk management, in line with the different international frameworks which have so much overlap, but sometimes lead to institutional silos also on the country level? So I was wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Can I respond? Yes, it's separate, but it's wrong. In my Department of Science and Technology, we think of the coverage of disaster risk reduction and the climate change issue as a continuum of processes that has different time duration, but is happening. What climate change does is to accelerate hazards or amplify the hazards that are already being addressed by disaster risk reduction. But the problem is we have two major groups, the DRR community and the climate change community. So they're pushing for two different plans. But if you're from the local government, your mind is already twisted with so many plans being asked of them. You have the disaster risk reduction plan and the local climate change action plan. That should be integrated, and that is why our effort in the Philippines through the Plan Smart is to integrate everything. Because it's just one continuum. And climate change, the long-term change in weather and rainfall, and natural disasters which are attributed to present and near future events are actually happening at the surface of the earth that can occur together. So if you're a planner, disaster manager, you're addressing both. But why do we separate those two? I think that's wrong. That's why through science, technology, innovation, and our mindset, we should treat this as one continuous process, because in reality, an ordinary farmer would ask, is it typhoon or related to climate change? I mean, you cannot answer, right? And as a scientist, you cannot claim it's a climate change right away, because you need to see long-term change. But we have to be practical. That's why we need to merge everything together.
Yeah. I fully agree, of course. I mean, logic is logic, and this is clear. We are seeing more and more phenomena in our countries that, of course, we are relating them to climate change, but at the same time, we have to approach the whole thing together. We've seen things that we have never seen before. We've seen tornadoes in Romania that never happened a few years ago. And what we see is that our population is not ready, because they are facing new phenomena that they have never been facing before. There's a small story I say about the tornado over the highway between Bucharest and Constanța. They saw the tornado, and we have a recording from inside the bus where the guy sitting near to the driver of the bus, who was a priest, he told him, if you go through it with a very high speed, you can pass through it.
That's faith.
So the driver had faith in what the priest told him. So he just accelerated and went through the tornado. The bus was carried and thrown a few meters away, and we had 5 severely injured people.
Was there no scientist on the bus?
So no scientist on the bus. There was no time to consult the scientist, you know. So it was just go through it, you know. And this shows that our population is not ready for the new things that are happening. So yes, we need to know on how we can tackle the climate change, but at the same time, what is happening every day, whether we link it to climate change or not, we have to be ready for it. And there are new things that are happening that we know that they didn't happen before. We had a hurricane-grade storm in Constanța, and our meteorological agency, they admitted that that was at the level of a hurricane, which is very unusual in Romania. And it was very destructive in that area. So from this point of view, they have to be tackled together. We have to prepare our population, we have to prepare ourselves, and we have to identify the measures that have to be implemented from this point of view.
I think from Tonga, we are the luckiest in the Pacific region, and we are the first to have the joint national action plan for climate change and DRM. So at the national level, we managed to bring the two communities at the national level. But at the regional level, the two communities are still fighting. Even worse at the colloquial level. But I just want to leave you with this, with Howard Ruff, that my favorite quote. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yep, please.
Thank you. Following up on your answers, first of all, my name is Marie-Flore and I work at GFDRR at the World Bank. Following up on your answers and also building upon what Director Diaz mentioned about addressing hazards, but also climate change and biodiversity, I was wondering if in your countries you are already integrating, for instance, nature-based solutions in some of the options to actually address those different issues. Thank you.
Well, I have 18 organizations under me focused on science, but every organization can do disaster resilience projects. So if you want to look at storm surges or tsunami, you can actually promote the development or regrowth of mangrove and coastal forests. But we also do a lot of nature-based solution on pollution control that can actually be a pathway for you to convince people that if this will work for small things like pollution, they can be easier convinced for large-scale projects. So yeah, a nature-based solution is important, and there are many things that can be done. The challenge, though, is sometimes some people would look at grander solutions, the high-end or engineering solutions, rather than nature-based. But yes, we're doing partly. But if you look at the very beautiful white beaches in the Philippines, and if you talk about storm surges or tsunami, do you want to build a seawall or nature-based solution so that you can be protected and you enjoy the beach? If you build a seawall, you destroy the beauty of the beach. So it has to be really evaluated properly. But some provinces chose to build seawall to protect their communities from storm surges. But then it would affect ecotourism and the fishing sector.
Well, in Romania, we do it, but not to the extent that it should be done. We have reforestation. We try to improve our forests to at least to lower the flash floods and so on, for example. But I think that more can be done about this. It is the Ministry of Environment which works mainly on this issue, but this is a medium and long-term solutions that have to be implemented, and we still need to do much more.
I think for Tonga, I just want to add on to how lucky we are. In 2014, the government reform put us eight departments, in one ministry. And the ministry with the longest name, it's quite a mouthful. It's a paragraph. Ministry of Meteorology, Energy, Information, Disaster Management, Environment, Climate Change, and Communications, and third. So that's the acronym is MEITEC, MEITECC. So it's a ministry with the longest name. But that's part of the trying to handle the issues that you mentioned, because we can't do it alone. We have to work together. As I mentioned, one of the issues that we have faced is that the financial constraints that we always face whenever there's an emergency. Ta hunga tonga hunga haapai, It's a 37.5 of our GDP. So you can imagine. So that's why the government reform in 2014 tried to put us together in one ministry so that we can sit down and help each other. But the only issue that we face with climate change, although that we are in the same hotel, but we're still sleeping in our own separate rooms.
Actually, I think that in Colombia we are having like some interesting discussion about nature-based solution. And you know, in some occasion, like you saw, like it's pretty much the same that we are doing before, you know, with the effort of integrating DRN and adaptation, mitigation, or all these things, but with a new languages. It's like the new sexy approach. I'm so sorry to say that it sounds unpopular, but you know, that it could be true. So right now, we are on the road of the COP16 biodiversity in Cali, Colombia, at the end of the year in October and November. And we are going to launch the National Strategy for Nature-Based Solution. So we need to discuss and to have like all the arrangements ready for the convention. But I think that the most important part of the discussion is what do we really want at the end of the action with the NBS solution, and how we are going to measure the result and the impact of those approaches. And this is pretty much all.
Great, thanks. And I think one thing we often hear too is the sort of cost benefit, right? So how, in terms of nature-based solutions, everybody's interested. It is a very sexy approach, but also, so how much do you invest versus the rate of return and the level of risk? No?
Yeah, just the cost benefit and cost efficiency issue. I like always to say that this is the biggest enemy of resilience. So if you want to have resilience, sometimes you have to be less cost efficient and accept that you need to have redundancies. You need to have several ways of doing it, which is maybe not the most cost efficient solution, but you become more resilient with them. Yep. This is an issue which we need always to talk to our finance ministries about it.
Yeah, and that goes beyond also nature-based
But this goes to response, this goes to many things, not
many
only
things.
here.
Yeah. So I think with that, I'm watching the clock. I think we have come to the end of this session. So I want to thank all the panelists. It was a great discussion. Excellent, and thanks to the audience. So I'm going to hand it back over now to Christina.
So just to remind everybody that we have, is it working now? Yes. So thank you to all our speakers, and thank you to Zoe. Just to remind you that we have coffee and snacks later if you want to continue the conversation. Now to move from the country work to talk a little bit more, I want you to focus now on some of our technical expertise. I'm going to call 4 colleagues to join us this afternoon. So we'll start with Karima Benbin. She's the Senior Disaster Risk Management at GFDRR. She's going to talk to us about how to do disaster risk management in fragile conflict and violent countries. Then I will ask Brendan. Brendan, you're going to be in the hot seat. We've been talking about MBS. So Brendan Youngman, he's the Senior DRM Specialist at GFDRR. He's going to be talking to us about MBS. We then have Mercedes Tariverdi. She's the Senior Data Specialist at the World Bank, and she'll talk to us about how to integrate climate and disaster risk into health systems. And finally, I'll ask Zoe again to talk to us about our work on gender equality and inclusion. And without further ado, Karima, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. Hello, everybody. I think I have a couple of slides, but okay. This, yes, okay. There we go. So thanks, everybody. My name is Karima Benbi. the focal point for the disaster FCV, which is Fragility, Conflict, Violence Nexus at GFDRR. And so I don't want to, many of you attended the December conversation where we presented a lot about what is the disaster FCV nexus, what is it that we do, but I just would like very quickly to remind you why it matters. About 60% of the world's poorest will be living in fragile and conflict-affected states. 14 out of the 20 poorest countries are the most affected by climate change. So, but why does it matter that we talk about fragility and disaster and violence and conflict in one nexus? Because if we want to generally avoid reduction of the development gains that we've made over the past 75 years that we've been trying to help alleviate poverty, we do need to address this. Recently, we've been working within GFDRR as part of our knowledge agenda to try to think a little bit about understanding how is it really that people that are living in conflict and fragility conditions are affected by disasters. Their recovery rate in an FCV context goes from 5 years after a major disaster to 20 years. So if you're a poor household in a country X that is affected by a conflict, violence, or fragility, and you're hit by say, a 1 in a 10-year flood or 1 in a 50-year flood, your recovery might not be in your lifetime at all. If you're 60, you might be dead before you're actually recovered. And so that's why it's important. However, it's not as straightforward. For every dollar we invest in disaster risk management in FCV contexts, the line is not easy to draw between the investment and the impact. We always hope that it's the bottom, so A to B, but it's more like the squiggly line in the middle. And it takes 3 things at the basics. One is taking a lot of time. It takes time to work on disaster risk management in FCV contexts. So the investments that we make, both in knowledge, in technical assistance, and in the actual investments of infrastructure capacity building, sometimes reap their benefits way after we are gone, actually, as development practitioners from those spaces. The second one is that we are to be more adaptable. So the tools that work in the beautiful country of Romania might not work in Chad, for instance, right? And consistency. So stay in the course as development practitioners, but also supporting the government counterparts throughout the different phases of fragility, conflict, and violence. I'm going to try to speak about 3 examples. Each one of them describes one of the cases, fragility, violence, as well as conflict. Okay. So from grant to impact, we go through technical assistance, just as a reminder. That is the biggest change that really leverages not only the investments from development partners and development of the country capacity, but also really pushes the agenda and creates that knowledge base in areas where often data capacity are very much lacking, and that's the only way for us to actually get to an impact. So I'm going to start with Haiti, actually. So as many of you, I think that many of you know, the country is facing currently a wave of violence. It's been extremely difficult to engage with the counterparts. They are extremely struggling with the gang violence. But the engagement of the World Bank has been spanning over 15 years now. It moved from recovery to disaster risk reduction, risk communication, all through support, very constant and continuous support by GFDRR. The adaptability of the technical assistance that was offered to through GFDRR to the country, as well as the adaptability of the teams and the counterparts to try to absorb different shocks, natural hazards, but also some of the crises that they are facing from the violence has been very critical, which left right now, as of today, only our project management units, civil protection, as being acting as the forefront of the crisis. They are also the community managers that have been engaged in and trained by GFDRR grants and by World Bank projects are also one of the few liaisons that exist right now with the communities that are affected by the violence. This next thing is Yemen. So this year marks the 10-year anniversary of the civil war that has been going for the country, in the country. The engagement of the World Bank has spanned, I think, about over 15 years with the country. We started actually disaster risk management way before the war, and we had to stop. GFDRR had a big early warning systems, for example, in the country, and it took a while for us to actually get back to discussing disaster resilience with the government counterparts as well as the non-state actors that we are engaging with. However, what has been impactful is the different points in which the government has requested support from the World Bank through GFDRR in leading assessments, developing SOPs for different approaches to urban services rehabilitation that take into account flooding and cyclones in the country in the rehabilitation of the roads and of the urban services that we've been providing, and now leading to two new things, going back to the early warning systems redevelopment of the country 15 years later, and then developing health resilience systems. All this within a country that has an ongoing war. And so to me, this is a very important element where we are also showing the fact that we've been consistent with the country that is going through a very difficult time, adapting our tools that we have, and then consistently supporting at different points of time, while the impact that we're seeing is only going to probably be visible later. Just as an example on Yemen, in 2015, we had a project with the World Bank that has been supported by GFDRR, where we had a hazard assessment. That hazard assessment has been only used maybe 5 years later in the investment project, but it wasn't able to be used at the time. But the results of it are only going to be felt probably once the project is done, and that is 10 years later. And so that's the time scale that I wanted to touch on a little bit. Then finally, Afghanistan. Similarly, the government, the World Bank has been engaged with Afghanistan for a very long time on disaster risk management, disaster risk communication, early warning systems. But throughout, since 2022, because of the situation there and being unable to actually continue the conversation on disaster risk management, a shift in focus has happened, but still the engagement has continued. We've done post-disaster assessments. We've done a crisis assessment where we actually helped assess the socioeconomic impacts of the refugee returns from Pakistan. And this has allowed us to remain engaged with non-state actors, which are extremely important for us in fragile and conflict-affected states. So the support and the analytics that GFDRR offers not only helps with the government capacity, but also allows us to span and provide kind of an outreach to the different countries, the different counterparts that exist and that work in the context we'd like to support. Very quickly again here, this is just from 2023, which is last fiscal year. As the World Bank, we have about 19% of the total funding of FY 2023 has gone to FCV countries across the board. 26% of approved grants of GFDRR have actually gone to support most of our work. So we're actually really increasing our support to the countries that we work with in FCV context, and we'd like to continue doing that through technical assistance, but also global knowledge sharing. I'd like to also invite you to the technical session tomorrow. We're discussing the work that we're doing at GFDRR on this topic. It's a nascent topic. There's very much a lot of things that need to still continue happening and continue being explored. But definitely, GFDRR is one of the few places that is at the helm of this research. Thank you. And then there's a QR code if you want to connect with us. Over.
where's that clicker? Somewhere? You have a clicker? How am I going to present the sexy topic without my clicker? Great to see everyone. And yeah, so I'm the focal point for the nature-based solutions thematic area together with Boris, who's also here. And we're co-leading this with the environment and the water practice in the bank. It's a very cross-disciplinary engagement. I fully agree with the comments made. Nature-based solutions are not a new thing. They're something that has been happening before. And also the drivers behind why we need nature-based solutions have been happening for a long time. Like, I don't have to tell you about the change of the world, of the ecosystems and green spaces quickly being replaced by infrastructure, informal settlement, and we need those roads. We need those roads to drive to those houses, and we can't drive on a forest. But at the same time, this is leading to a lot of climate resilience issues, from flooding and landslides in places where we cut down the forest and we don't integrate it into planning, to urban heat island, which is getting increasingly bad in cities, especially where there's no green space for shade. And also just a lack of green space for our communities, for mental health reasons, for markets, and these kind of things. So what we're really trying to do with nature-based solutions is integrating nature in infrastructure planning, into resilience investment. And the World Bank and GFDR have been doing this for quite a long time, from coral reef restoration, mangrove protection for coastal resilience, the development of urban parks specifically designed to fight flooding and to help with the green needs in cities, in places like Colombo, in Mozambique, in Colombia as well, to the reforestation of mountainous areas where we build roads in places like Nepal to protect these roads from landslides. Now you hear us talk a lot to you, of course, about the impact of GFDR and how we're driving a lot of this. And I am a little bit biased, but at the same time, in the field of nature-based solutions, GFDR has made a huge impact within the World Bank system, but also outside of that. So we started a dedicated program on nature-based solutions back as far as 2016, and the grants provided by GFDR on operations, on analytics, and innovation have been really helping to make nature-based solutions from an idea to something that can actually be implemented on the ground. So I just wanted to give you three examples. One is the impact through grants and operational support. In Sierra Leone in 2017, there was a large landslide caused by deforestation, and the bank and GFDR was there since the beginning to help the government in their Tree Town campaign, in which they said, we want to plant 1 million trees to fight landslides, fight flooding. And this has actually succeeded now. In 2023, almost 1 million trees have been planted with support from GFDR, and 1,000 jobs have been created for local community members to plant trees and water trees. An app has been developed to do that and to make payments available to those community members, which was also supported by GFDR. The second piece is analytics and knowledge. As Niels also said, we create this knowledge and analytics not for the sake of having knowledge, but for the sake of informing operations. And in Chad, we applied what we call the Nature-Based Solutions Opportunity Scan, and you can hear more about it this week. We also have some publications here, which is a geospatial approach for identifying investments in nature-based solutions at city and coastal level. And in Chad, in the preparation of a large investment project at the city level, we use that approach to identify concrete investments in different types of nature-based solutions, from parks and green spaces, look at the benefits for flooding and for heat and for urban agriculture. And those investments, after validating them with communities and the government on the ground, were directly integrated in the investment program, creating financing for nature-based solutions that would otherwise not have happened. And this approach has now been actually applied to over 60 cities and coastlines, informing over $2 billion of investment.
One love, one heart, let's get together and feel alright.
We can always leave it to the Jamaicans to create a good atmosphere. This was actually just 2 weeks ago in Jamaica, where we started rolling out the Nature-Based Solutions training program, which we have specifically designed to go to the next step, to really help from the having nature-based solutions integrated investment projects is great, you know, we're going to finance it, but how to actually do it sustainably and how to operate it, maintain it. So this training program is designed for projects that are at implementation or design stage to help build the capacity of government in these kind of things. In addition to training, we have technical deep dives as well with many of our donor partners here in Japan. We had one last year. In September, we'll do one in Austria on mountainous nature-based solutions. And all of these trainings are really for those governments really at the front line working on nature-based solutions and building that capacity. So through GFDR's thematic area, and I won't go through all these numbers, but just over the last year, we supported over 80 projects with NBS identification and implementation. These projects reached in the end 14 million beneficiaries and also supported the restoration and conservation of over 380,000 hectares of nature with climate resilience benefits for communities. So that's already quite a lot of work, yet the demand that we are seeing on the ground and the needs are much bigger. Every urban project that we have should really look at that green space that is providing climate resilience benefits. And we're really looking forward to working with all of you in further pushing this agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mercedes. I will be brief. Our program is a climate and disaster risk management for health systems. And health system around the world before COVID, they have been systematically reactive to shocks and disasters. And that is unfortunate because they have to provide care to injured population while continuing the essential healthcare services to population at need for their regular needs. Unlike health, other sectors have started integrating DRM into their strategic planning much earlier. And that put us in GFDRR in a unique position to leverage those expertise and experiences across themes, sectors, and countries to support health in integrating disaster risk management into their strategic plannings and to support them to target the population that are most affected by disasters. And that is really important because population need and needs in disasters varies drastically. And it is really hard to do that. I mean, it's easier said than to be done. How do we do it? We leverage data, artificial intelligence, mathematical modeling to inform decision-making and world bank investments, but through simple insights. For example, in Colombia, we identified and suggested 10 top facilities, primary healthcare facilities and hospitals that are most vulnerable to floods, landslides, or both. But we did not only look at the infrastructure vulnerability. Those facilities are the point of care for the least resilient communities. Those communities have no backup options to reach health services, or it's very costly for them to go to another hospital or clinic. That is 1.1 million people that are at direct risk. This is jet lag, I'm sorry. My tongue doesn't roll. Direct risk. 1.1 million people at direct risk of losing access to primary care services, and over 2.5 million people that would lose access to higher care and emergency cares in hospitals. So we need to act, and we support health systems to do that. However, equally important, we facilitate harmonizing investments across sectors. Roads, as we heard from Philippines, roads, water, energy, and communications are as important as doctors, nurses, and medication. Without roads and access, doctors, patients, nurses cannot get to hospitals. And without clean water, there would be no safe surgery to be done. So we support, this is my last slide. We support World Bank teams on the ground. They support not only national governments, but also local agencies to derive economically feasible, resilient health system delivery. We don't stop there. We also support health colleagues in the reforms and long-term strategic plannings of health sector to build in DRM into health DNA. And we think that is really important for long-term impacts of the country and the approach that health sector takes in integrating disaster risk management. We launched this program in 22 with generous support of Japan's program in mainstreaming disaster risk management. Since then, we have supported 17 countries, over 20 World Bank teams in health, transport, and disaster risk management. There is gap in DRM and health, but I don't think that these gaps needs to be, all the bill needs to be picked up by health sector. Other infrastructure investments can be supported to efficiently and effectively contribute to health system resiliency. And we are here to support the teams and the countries through data and analytics to deliver that. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. You met me. I'm Zoe. I'm back. So I'm happy to be here. I am the co-lead of the Inclusive DRM and Gender Equality thematic area. As you all know, it's a cross-cutting theme to the GFDR strategy. And so we are working across regions with country teams, but also within GFDRR, across the different teams who you've heard from today, to try and make sure that gender equality and social inclusion are mainstreamed into everything we do. So let's get started. So I'm going to explain, I'm going to talk about 3 ways and a few examples of how GFDR supports countries to advance their inclusive DRM and gender equality outcomes and drive impact on the ground. So how do we do this, right? And so there are 3 key ways. There are actually many ways, but I'm going to just go into 3 key ones today to keep it short. So first, we do it by connecting. So one example, of course, is inclusive early warning systems. And we all have heard also about the Early Warning for All initiative. Inclusive early warning systems should connect and alert everyone, especially the most vulnerable, so that they're informed and protected when a storm or flood event occurs. So one example of where this is happening and where we're providing support is Sri Lanka. So in Sri Lanka, for marginalized communities living in vulnerable conditions, especially in flood-prone areas, having access to timely and accurate early warning systems is crucial. So what we're doing is we're supporting a $92 million investment program that includes the development of 10 community disaster management plans in the Kalani River Basin to enhance early warning systems. So by providing alerts in local languages, ensuring accessibility regardless of technology, access, location, these communities are better prepared for the next flood event or storm. Next, second. So we also do it by engaging. So a big focus that we've been scaling up, of course, gender equality is important, but we've also been scaling up our work on disability inclusion. And that requires active engagement and empowerment, especially, of persons with disabilities on all aspects of disaster risk reduction, preparedness, and response. And so here, just this is an example of some of our support. We've been working with the Republic of the Marshall Islands and organizations like the Disabled Persons and Deaf Flourish Association to engage with the community to implement participatory processes to prioritize accessible infrastructure. And so these efforts are informing a $30 million investment program that is building resilient, inclusive, and accessible infrastructure and public facilities in Majuro. And then, of course, third, we do it by building capacity. So Here, I'm going to talk very briefly about the importance of gender-based violence in emergency preparedness and response, because this requires strategies to prevent, mitigate, and strengthen capacities to better respond in a sensitive manner. So we are actually working with Costa Rica to establish gender-based violence protocols for emergencies and also delivery of training for the emergency teams, because they need to know the protocols and what to do in the event of a disaster. And so this is linked to a $350 million investment program that's actually upgrading over 40 community centers and shelters, as well as enhancing emergency preparedness efforts and providing crucial support for vulnerable populations, including refugees and survivors of gender-based violence. And so the outcome, of course, will be not only that women and girls are safer, but also the first responders are better trained and equipped and able to identify these types of GBV cases before and after a shock occurs. So now I'm going to do a shameless plug, everybody. So whoever is still here at the Understanding Risk Conference and during this week, so I highlighted these 3 topics because these are also the areas we're going to be discussing at Understanding Risk. So we're going to have a session on Tuesday on gender-based violence prevention with our gender colleagues and counterparts from different international organizations and governments. On Wednesday, we're going to focus on disability inclusive DRM. And Friday, we're looking at inclusive early warning for all and empowering communities. So I'll stop there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for your presentations. I would like to welcome Mr. Takahiro Tsuda. He's the director of the Multilateral Development Banks Division at Japan's Minister of Finance. We are lucky to have him as a GFDRR co-chair. He came to Himeji to share his reflections on the long-standing partnership between GFDRR and Japan with us today. Thank you for coming, Mr. Tsuda. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. And thank you for your introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, as a representative of the Japanese Ministry of Finance and also as the GFDRR co-chair, the first word is always the welcome all of you here to Japan. And I had that like 1,785 people from 134 countries, and that is itself is a great achievement. Because of the prior commitment of this morning, I'd have to apologize that I missed the kind of the discussion of the first part, but I'm pretty sure that you learned a lot, like compiling insights about the transformative impact of GFDRR's initiatives from the distinguished speakers, panelists who are duly in charge of disaster risk management in their respective countries, in Tonga, Colombia, Romania, and the Philippines. And then I came here, and I'm very happy to learn the essential cross-sector link between the GFDRR and the other development policy agenda, including, of course, fragility, nature-based solutions, health, and gender and diversity. As you know, Japan is a nation shaped by the natural forces, where earthquakes shake our lands. You know, it happens yesterday as well, by the way, and typhoons test our resolve. So every time we have experienced the harsh natural disasters, we have built back better. In other words, not only rebuilt our communities, but have done so with greater foresight and innovation. Why do you think we could do that? Because we have become keenly aware of the criticality of properly understanding the risk of natural disasters and fostering preparedness on a continuous basis for that purpose. As we approach the 30th anniversary of the Great Hanshin-Awaji earthquake, we are reminded of this very important principle. We are of the view that our expertise, our lessons, and the belief in resilience to natural disasters should not remain within our borders. This is why we have decided to partner with the GFDRR to create a significant impact on a global scale. We are facing the numerous adversities around the globe, including devastating earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, the catastrophic floods in Pakistan and Kenya, and the hurricanes that have hit the Caribbean countries and the floods in Brazil, to name a few. We must take decisive actions, and that decisive actions need to be based on collective efforts, employing GFDRR's expertise. GFDRR is unparalleled in its extensive experience, technical knowledge, and deep real-time understanding of disaster risk management priorities, city by city, country by country, bringing innovative solutions for disaster-related challenges. I'd like to commend all the GFDR staff, and I really appreciate your great dedication and hard work, and your commitment to building resilience of the developing world by innovating, collaborating, and I like the word connecting people and connecting the dots. Something that seemingly unrelated should be related and linked by your great expertise. Together, we can drive large-scale change and make a significant impact in alignment with the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction back in 2015. Moreover, a little bit of small advertisement. The Tokyo Disaster Risk Management Hub, established in collaboration with the GFDRR and the World Bank, exemplifies Japan's commitment to sharing knowledge and expertise. This hub stands as a center of excellence, providing grant funding, technical assistance, sharing knowledge, and developing innovative solutions to help countries around the globe. The hub also executes the Japan program, the official name Japan World Bank Program for Mainstream Disaster Risk Management to Developing Countries. This is a partnership dedicated to integrating disaster risk management practices into the development policies and investment on vulnerable nations. These joint efforts have not only saved lives, but also promoted sustainable development, in particular in vulnerable regions. Before I conclude, let me thank all the participants and the staff, in particular those who work behind the scenes for preparing this event and the whole week. I firmly believe that we are in the right place with the right group and with the right people. So I encourage all of you to take advantage of being here this week and actively participate in a wide variety of events, discussions, dialogue. Let us continue to work together to build a safer, more resilient world for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Suda, for those inspiring words. I would like to call now to our Vice President for Infrastructure, Mr. Wansen. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon. As we conclude this very insightful Partnership Day today event, I'm very happy to share a few reflections from the World Bank's, on behalf of the World Bank and our team here. We hear many compelling stories from our partner government organizations, I think from Philippines, Colombia, Togo, and Romania, about the impact of the GFDR's financial support, technical assistance, and knowledge on the ground. We also hear from our specialists from GFDR about some of the innovative work and also connecting to different themes and some of the new measures that emerging priority area that we're working on. So I think this testimony really highlight the critical role that GFDR plays in enhancing disaster risk management and building resilient community worldwide. The session also highlight the Understanding Risk event that GFDR is hosting in partnership with the Japanese government, including nature-based solutions, joint inclusive disaster risk management, health, and managing risk in FCV countries. They also highlight the innovative approach and collective effort essential for addressing this challenge effectively with greater efficiency, innovation, and scale. We are really deepening our commitment for climate adaptation within our disaster risk management effort and beyond. I think that was really highlighted in the question that was raised and also response from our panelists about the continuum between climate change and disaster risk management. And I think this is also highlighted by all our panelists from across the countries about that particular continuums. In fact, you probably know that the World Bank is the largest MDBs in terms of financier of climate investment in low-income countries. We actually, last COP28, we are committed to dedicate 45% of World Bank Group's financing to fund climate-related investments by 2025, which is just about 12 months from now. We want to meet that target. And this is including both mitigation and adaptations. It is a challenging target, but it's something that we're committed to achieve. I should mention that I think the work that we're doing on disaster risk management is really aligned with in Japan, we talk about the Sendai framework. And of course, globally, we're talking about the Paris alignments, and of course, and the SDG goals by 2030. And we are really determined to achieve this global sustainability and the resilience of the work that we're doing. I think GFDR's ability to mobilize development financing and leverage its expertise is really a testament to this commitment made by the World Group. As the Vice President for Infrastructure Practice Group, I think for those of you who follow the World Bank's evolution, you may heard that from July 1st, we have some sort of internal minor adjustments in terms of organization. One of those impacted is the fact that this the disaster risk management and GFDRR is moving from one practice group to the disaster risk management practice group under my vice presidency. I'm really happy to see that opportunity of this integration and synergy. Some 15 years ago, I actually worked in this field in Latin America region. In fact, there's some of the innovative work that we're seeing today on disaster risk management actually started at that time because the Latin America region was the one initiated the disaster risk management unit in the World Bank Group. We're talking about only about 15 years ago. And a lot of the work that we're doing today is actually initiated in Latin America region. For instance, I know Philippines, for example, have embraced this CAT-DDO. The first set of CAT-DDO actually we did was in Central America back in 15 years ago. And at that time, we also work on other Central America capability risk assessments. I think it's a framework to actually trying to assess damages from natural disasters sort of in a rapid fashion. So quite a bit of work has been initiated in that field, and also GFDR is really in the center of this effort. As I say, I think this internal transition in the World Bank is also marks a really significant step in our shared mission to foster sustainable development, because I do really see a lot of synergies between disaster risk management, resilience, and infrastructure investment across the field that we work. I want to make sure that obviously from our infrastructure side that we can really, when we build infrastructure, they withstand the disaster and the climate change, and as a centerpiece of the work that we're doing. And of course, ultimately, this is really for contributing to the safety, well-being, and the prosperity of the community that we want to support. Incorporating disaster readiness into infrastructure planning and development is also critical for sustainable growth and risk reductions. I think some of these key feature was also mentioned by my colleague about, for example, nature-based solution is such a measures. I should mention that GFDR also play a key role in the World Bank evolving in the better address some of the global challenges. I think some of our colleagues mentioned one of our new toolkits, so-called this crisis preparedness and responsive toolkit that we developed over the last year or so, within which we also have this rapid response options. It's also a new tools that we developed in the World Bank Group. And I think GFDR team has played a key role in helping to develop these innovative solutions. GFDR also linked the crisis responsiveness with the financing. I think that all our current colleagues here mentioned about how GFDR helping them to design the project, disaster risk management project in their countries. And the one more thing I would like to mention is by echoing this evolution roadmap of the World Bank over the last 18 months, one of the key features that is so-called the knowledge compact. We really want to position ourselves, renewing our effort as a knowledge bank. And again, GFDR's work over the years is really featured prominently in the new knowledge compacts. And this approach will also help us to tailor the development strategy that are adaptable and scalable across the country that we want to work. Finally, I want to mention the fact that GFDR also embraced the World Bank's principle of partnership by learning from our partners and learning from our colleagues. I think the fact that we're partnering with Japan is a good example of that, because I think my colleague, Mr. Suda, mentioned the fact that Japanese society, government has obviously learned a lot from their adaptation and also their work in terms of mitigating the impact of natural disasters. Some of them you can say that you cannot avoid that, but you can certainly do better in prepare and recover better when disaster strikes. Together, I think we're not only responding to the immediate challenge, but also shaping a resilient and sustainable futures. In closing, I just want to extend my deepest gratitude to all the participants and to all my colleagues from GFDR throughout the different regions as well, and in organizing this event, and of course our partners from the government of Japan in supporting us for this effort. I think together, all of your dedication, insight, and collaboration is going to be the driving force behind all the progress together, all of us. What I want to say is that together, I think we are building a much more resilient future. I think we should take credit for all the work that we're doing ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wang, for bringing us to the end of the Partnership Days in such a positive note. And yes, you hear it well. This is the end. It's time to go for coffee on the second floor. I just want to remind you that we have a full agenda. Please have a look. There are many events, and I hope you enjoy them. I want to remind you as well, you have there all our social media channels. Today you hear a little bit of our work, but if you want to stay up to date, that's a good way to do so. So thank you so much for all being here.